Good morning, everybody. This is Betsy Wurtzel, host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. It is Friday, December 13th. I have a very special guest with me today. But before I introduce my guest, on Chatting with Betsy, I love when people speak their truth and show their emotion. Here on Chatting with Betsy, I respect my guest, and I want my guest to feel comfortable. So if the guest gets emotional, that is okay. It's okay. I get emotional. We are emotional human beings. So listen to the story behind the person, and it's all okay. I know I will not apologize anymore for who I am, and I don't expect anyone to apologize for being emotional, for showing who they are, for being who they are. And I just wanted to say that because I felt the need to say that. And I have a lovely woman with me today. Her name is Diane. What would you like to be called? Dee or Diane?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Diane, D, whatever you want to call me. Mm-hmm.
Diane, whose husband passed away this summer, right, Dee? In June? Was it June?
August 23rd at 10 a.m. Mm-hmm.
August. Sorry, there's been, unfortunately, folks, there has been so many people's deaths that I can't even keep track from this horrible disease. And I have with me today Dee, whose husband Jim passed away in August. How old was your husband, Dee? And welcome to Chatting with Betsy, and thank you for coming on with me today.
Thank you, Betsy. He was 63.
How old was Jim? 63.
He was 63 when he passed, yes. Mm-hmm.
And how old was Jim when he started this journey?
When it was official, 59, but I had been taking him to physicians when he was 54 because he kept telling me something wasn't right. He wasn't feeling right. It was like there was a motion picture going on in his head. Just didn't feel right, and he was doing little things. It wasn't anything, you forget to put your key, you forget your keys, stuff like that. And his job was very, he had long hours, and so I finally got a diagnosis when he had the lumbar puncture. He was at the Cleveland Clinic when he was 59. Yeah.
Wow. I just had another guest whose husband was also 59 and had the lumbar puncture, but they had no history in their family, and Jim's family does have a history of
his dad.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how old was Jim's dad?
His dad was 59 when he was diagnosed, or 58, and he passed at 67.
Wow.
But I was told that Jim had Lewy body disease, which is more aggressive. A kind soul as he was gentle, kind, loving. Nobody ever had a bad word to say about him. He was everything to me. And he turned into a complete opposite. He was very violent, very nasty. It was nonstop. And then towards the end, he wouldn't sit still worth nothing. He was just angry at everything, hallucinated. He was, like I told you, he was urinating all over the place. He was just, there was no getting through to him whatsoever. Nothing. And he was hospice for the last week, where I was giving him morphine every 2 hours, and they were with me for the whole week. And my daughters also stayed, and the whole family would come during the day. We had a house full of people. which I think made it, not that it was no means easier, but I had people around me. And now I can't even tell you I'm having nightmares. And I'm sure it's from watching such a super good man deteriorate the way he did, and watching some of the things you see and watched, and you know yourself, Betsy, that they do and say, and is just unimaginable.
Yes.
Unless you're seeing it 24/7, as we do as caregivers who decide to take that upon ourselves. I just feel very lost without him. I would do it again in a heartbeat, but I'm telling you, this medical community, this medical system has got to do something, because more and more people are going to have it, and it is not pretty to watch. It is the ugliest thing you'll ever want to see.
Absolutely correct, Dee. I agree. You had trouble getting doctors to listen to you.
They did.
And
right.
Jim about the diagnosis, because, and I'm glad you said that Jim had Lewy body, because people don't know about Lewy body. I did have 2 other guests about Lewy body. Erica's dad had Lewy body, and Helen's husband, he's still alive, he has Lewy body, because people need to know that there is more than one type of dementia. Alzheimer's is just one, and the differences that happen, and that people do have a different reaction with Lewy body. They are, Matt hallucinates, but he's not violent. I mean, he could get violent, I'm sure, who knows. But people need to know what goes on, and the frustration. And I know that you were frustrated in getting doctors to listen and to say, you know what, there's something wrong here. I'm sure Jim was probably diagnosed with depression, like Matt was. You told, they're too young, right?
No, they said he had fatigue. It was fatigue. His job was very taxing. And he doesn't get enough sleep. He's got a very physical job. I'm sure it's that. I said his father had it young. Even the physicians I worked with said, no, it's not possible. I'm like, okay, but I'm living it, okay? I'm living it, and you're telling me it's not possible. Finally, when I took him to the Cleveland Clinic, they listened. But again, there was not enough tools in the toolbox to help him. And again, the meds he got towards the end killed him. He went into kidney failure. That's what it killed him.
I've come to a conclusion now that Matt is at the end stage. And this really was very difficult for me to process, and it still is. There's no happy medium. You don't want them, like I don't want Matt a zombie, but I don't want him agitated. And I'm told it's either one or the other. There's no happy medium. And then you feel that you're killing them in a way. And I told the hospice nurse this. And it's just, unfortunately, there's nothing. There isn't anything for a dementia brain. These medicines are for psychiatric issues, not a dying brain.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
and that's
right.
the problem.
And when he got kicked out of the daycare because I had to retire in April, they got kicked out because he got violent, and so I stayed home with them. And they told me there was no more I can do for him unless I took him, which Lutheran is a psychiatric place where they can adjust meds. And I said, if I take him there, that's going to kill him. I can guarantee you that. I stayed with him every day for 8 hours at least. I watched him. He had to have a guard on him. They were trained in behavioral. These guards were exceptional. They were, when they seen what type of person when he was really, and me, staying there 8 hours because he would get violent at times. But they understood the disease. They were healthcare workers. And even the doctor said, "Thank you for sharing your love story. We've never seen such love between two people." And it was so sad. They actually came to the wake, as some of the nurses. To watch him, he wouldn't sit still. That's why he had to guard on him. He was constantly, you try to feed him, he was walking. He wouldn't sit still for nothing towards the end. I mean, it was awful. And when he came home, I would have to tie things so he can go up the steps. I was afraid he would fall down the steps. Again, he was urinating everywhere. And then hospice came in. He fell on the floor, and the next thing you know, it went so quick when he came home the second time. He was only out of the hospital for 2 days. And he went right back in for another month. And then I brought him home on hospice. There was no more we could do for him. He was actively, he had him tied to a bed. He was like a maniac. To watch a human being behave like that, and there's nothing this medical system could do but keep giving him these toxic drugs, which killed him.
And that is extremely, extremely difficult and heartbreaking to watch. It just tears you inside out. And I understand Matt is much more, calm than Jim was, but just to see him being agitated, and he can't be awake and just be calm. He either's got to be zonked or agitated, and there's just no happy medium. And I just want to tell the world, and if any doctors are listening, scientists, we want happy medium. We want appropriate drugs, medications for our loved ones. Okay, we want medications to help a dying brain. And, Seroquel and these other medications, they're for patients who have psychiatric issues, not ones who have dementia and their brains are dying. Nobody knows, not even the doctors know how a dementia patient reacts to these medications.
They put him on Cyproxa at Lutheran. It was shutting down. He went into rhabdomyolysis. He was in intensive care because then I withdrew the DNR. And then Depakote. All that medication caused that reaction, which was he was dying. I mean, he was actively starting to die, his organs. And then I brought him home towards the end. It's just heartbreaking, and people say, no, you don't know, because every day I would rather be showering him, shaving him, feeding him, doing what I did with him, trying to take him out, trying to give him some kind of a life. And then towards the end, he had nothing, but he was like, anybody looked at him, they thought he was like totally off the wall, like a barbarian.
Okay, goodbye.
But he couldn't help it. It was not
him.
It wasn't a choice. It was a disease.
Exactly. I've told the hospice people, Susie, I want you to know what it's like for the caregiver. I want you to know what it's like when I'm going through. And when hospice came 2 weeks ago, and even a week from last Monday, I showed them pictures. This is what my husband looked like. My husband was a productive person. Our loved ones, and I want the world to know this, Dee, our loved ones were productive, lovely human beings.
Souls, kind
okay.
souls. Will do anything for anybody except my husband.
Yes,
and this, as yours.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And this disease changes them through no fault of their own. It just is the nature, I call it the nature of the beast, a part of the package of this, whatever your loved one has, Alzheimer's, Lewy body, vascular, whatever your dementia your loved one has, to see them change before your eyes is just utterly devastating. Now, we can, read about it. We hear stories. But when it's your loved one and you see it, there's no words to describe how gut-wrenching.
It's a nightmare.
Absolutely.
It literally is a nightmare to watch somebody you love with all your heart and soul suffer. And he was suffering, because I have videos of him also telling me his brain was being eaten and he will never see the kids grow up. He will never see anything. And he was scared. And to hear, and then he would revert and say, "Oh, look at the guy with the hair." All of a sudden he was hallucinating. He would jump. He would be crying one minute. I mean, it was you were living in a world of you never knew what he was going to do or say next. It was constant. It was like a roller coaster I was riding, and you know that.
Yes.
And I worked and I would physically take him to a daycare, and it worked for a while, and it was hard. And get him home, had to shower him, had to shave him. He couldn't do anything for himself anymore. He would try to take the deodorant and brush his teeth with the deodorant. He would try to take the toothbrush and use that as deodorant. I mean, it was bizarre, what he was seeing and what he was not seeing, what he couldn't register. If you weren't watching it 24/7 as you do or as I did or other caregivers do, it's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
Yes.
And it's still in my brain, so fresh.
Yeah.
That it's killing me inside that I am in counseling because this man who was so kind and amazing had to suffer so bad again. And I think I told you before, I was only out 3 evenings in 5 years without him, where I got away from that. Otherwise, unless I went to work, which then I was dealing, I worked at a hospital, so I was dealing with type of people on dialysis that we had to tie down to the bed so they can have dialysis. So, I mean, I never got away from any of that.
So you were a professional and a personal caregiver.
For 6 years. I was at work, and I had to retire in April, correct? Mm-hmm. And this is the way people treated people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I said, well, I have a husband at home like this. Is that how you would treat him if he was hospitalized? Because that's not acceptable.
No, it's not. And how they are treated in hospitals is very unacceptable.
Oh, absolutely.
Extremely.
I don't have to agree. And that's why I will never return to that. I'm retired. And if I do something, it'll be what I want to do. It'll be, I don't know. Right now I'm not making no harsh decisions, but I know it won't be health care again. I know I tried to reach out to the Alzheimer's group to try to start a group for young onset, and I get poo-pooed and, the need and whatever. And you get tired of fighting. I am tired of fighting these people.
I was ignored also, Dave, by here in New Jersey. They have a separate branch. They broke off from the National Alzheimer's Association. And because I didn't belong to them, they just dismissed me. They totally dismissed me. No, I'm not disrespecting the Alzheimer's Association. They do many wonderful things.
Yes,
they're great. But they need to acknowledge people, even if they don't belong to their association, and to give them a chance to be heard. Now, there's not many groups for early onset wives. There was one, and it was inconvenient time and an inconvenient location for me. That would be awesome for you to have a group, a support group. I mean, it's much needed for early onset, because early onset has their own different set of issues, because the person is not retired. they are losing at least 10 years of income. I mean, Matt was 56 when he had to go out on disability. So at least 10 years of income is gone, not to mention the role reversals, and just the whole household is turned upside down. I mean, I was independent. I knew how to do things, so I had to hire someone to do gutters and lawn, and these are extra expenses.
And then that's it's just thing. That's the hardship.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. Just devastating. And then you have also, and I really don't like to seem morbid, but you know what? I'm going to tell it like it is on this show. I know this probably sounds terrible. Thankfully, and I know this sounds awful, that I just turned 62 because in case, when Matt goes, now I can collect partial his Social Security, more of a benefit at 62 than 60, and see which is the higher. It's probably be higher than what I would get because I just filed for Social Security so I could have some kind of income because I know I'm going to have to stay home with Matt eventually. And it's just, people don't get it. And you know what really annoys me, Dee, is when people say, oh, well, you should have saved up for a rainy day. Well, you knew this was going to happen, so you should have saved up. Well, yeah, like I knew my husband was going to get Alzheimer's, and even if you've saved up, you go through that so quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
Very quickly.
The expense, absolutely. When you're losing the income, my husband really had a good income, and we didn't have any in the beginning. It was like $900 a month we were getting. It was when I look back at how I made it through, I don't even know how I got through it. So I figure I'll get through this somehow. I don't know how. Without him, I'm lost right now. I'm totally lost. I don't care. I will figure it out somehow. I have turned more towards the church again because I can go to church now. With Jim, I couldn't. He'd be running around the pews and on the altar, and it was not good. So.
Yeah, I haven't been able to go to church with Matt, so after his journey's over, I'll be going back because I never know he's going to curse out loud. And then negotiating the stairs, going up and down, he couldn't do that. And it is difficult because then people, turn away from you. The church that we went to, Matt served there as a Sunday school teacher, a trustee, a deacon, and then he gets sick, can no longer serve in the church, and you turn your back on him. I called up our church, well, our ex-church, because I don't go there anymore. I got excommunicated because I called up and yelled at him. I asked for help mowing the lawn. I would even pay somebody. No response. Need help shoveling snow. No response. And my husband was at that work day for church all the time. Now he needs help, and you can't give him any. That's a disgrace to me.
It
that's
is
just
because
disgraceful.
that's what I told the church when they called because they always want the offering every week. And I said I can only give a little bit. I have barely any money. I have terrible health care. Can't even use my health care right now because of the marketplace. Not like when I was working. So unless I'm absolutely no other recourse, I didn't use it all last year because it's really like having nothing. Really, it's a $8,000 deductible and everything's out of your pocket. So it's awful what we have done, and the government does. There has, because you know what? There's going to be more and more happening.
Yes.
More and more people. Why? Because it didn't happen to you, so you don't care about it. No, that's not the attitude we have to have. We need to fight to get help for this disease. Fight for caregivers. I don't know how to go about it. Right now I can't even get through my own life right now with the counseling because that's all I do is cry. And it's not on purpose. It just happens. it's a loss in what we dealt with. And as you know, Betsy, the only people that really understand are the people that have done it 24/7.
Yes.
You know, that don't get the sleep, that have to worry about, Jim fell down the steps a couple of times, so you feel like you're not a good caregiver. He'd be screaming at me, blaming me that I pushed him, you know. I mean, I could tell you stories. I mean, it was like living a years of a nightmare.
Yes. I call it the Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I mean,
right.
It's the Twilight Zone of Dementiaville. And I know when Matt first started to hallucinate, I was in a grocery store and Josh called me up and he said, Dad's really agitated. He's yelling. He's saying there's people in the house. And Josh was upset. So I had to calm both of them down over the phone. And I said, Josh, just go with the flow. Then pretend to kick people out. You can't argue, you know, with them because to them it's real. And the hallucinations are just incredible. And, you know, I'm glad that you pointed out some things that I want really the listeners to really hear it. You mentioned you're on I call it the Unaffordable Health Care Act. That's another huge expense, folks. Matt was company said at 65, you know, we're not covering you anymore. So Josh was okay because he already is on Medicare, Medicaid. Matt was already on Medicare. He just had to get a supplement. I'm the one that got screwed. Now here I am in the so-called Affordable Health Care Act, which is not affordable. The coverage sucks. It just sucks. And you can't even get sick. So that's another expense, and I'm glad you brought that out. Also, the you know, hallucinations and how you feel after the fact that your husband passed away. And it's recent because Jim passed away in August. It's still with you, and you're not the only one. And I want the world to know. And I'm going to do a separate show on this because it really needs to be addressed. The long-term effects of a caregiver are lifelong. It just doesn't go away when the person passes on, folks. It's lifelong. And you think, oh, well, move on. You could get over it. That's not how it is. You know, it's our health.
They didn't live it. Because they didn't live
That's right.
They didn't live the nightmare. Nobody can actually a movie needs to be made. I mean, Jim went 24/7. He was mean. He was violent. I told you my mother died in May on our anniversary, 24th, of dementia also. My dad was her caregiver. He's 82. His health failed. I mean, me and Jim would go over there. I would babysit both of them while he could do his errands. You know, it's just your brain just doesn't recover like that. You see it. It's not like you want to see it over and over in your head. It just happens because you lived it. You lived it. You lived something that you can't even imagine a human being has to endure in their lifetime.
Yes, and, you know, not quite 18 years ago, my mother-in-law died in 2006. When I was going for therapy when she was still alive, I would say, I had post-traumatic stress from this. And they blew me off. And now, lo and behold, they're recognizing, yes, caregivers have post-traumatic stress.
You got it.
Yeah, they do. Yes, we do. And it's something that you can't explain to someone else because they haven't lived it. They don't understand that our health gets affected. We are on high alert 24/7, 365 days a year. We are on high alert.
You sleep with one
because
eye
of our loved ones. Yes.
Right. You sleep with one eye open, so you never,
Yeah, and one ear open, and it takes an effect.
And you would think I could sleep now. Betsy, I don't sleep. I might fall asleep for an hour or two on the couch try to go upstairs, maybe sleep an hour. I can't sleep. My brain is constantly trying to adapt. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It's not like I try to do happy things. Like I said, my grandchildren bring me a lot of happiness. But that's, but you don't have that same relationship with your children as you do with your spouse. It's a different relationship. Your kids can't be with you 24/7. Your grandkids can't be. They have their lives, and I want them to have their lives. But again, and most people would only see him in his little outbursts, see him for a little bit, like his friends or something would see him for a little. They didn't see it 24/7. They didn't shower him. They didn't bathe him. They didn't do the extremes that you do to a person that's only 59, 60 years old. You don't think that your husband's going to be in a diaper, or you don't think your husband needs to be showered and groomed, and then he hits the shaver out of your hand or the toothbrush. Get it the hell away from me, thinking you're trying to hurt them. He always thought I was trying to hurt them. Or he thought there were tons of people in the house. And I would say to him, okay, I guess I didn't make enough food for these people. I try to make a joke about it. I don't have enough food, Jim, for all these people. So
you know what? That's weird that you mentioned that, Dee, that Jim thought there was a lot of people in the house, because Matt thinks there's people in the house all the time, big men. He talks about big men are over there, and they're outside of the house, and he's starting to see, like, his mom and dad and brother who passed away. He even hallucinated that he saw a dog. I'm wondering if it was his dog. The other day he told me he heard music. I said, what music? There wasn't any playing. He said instruments. I said, well, maybe it's the angels playing their music.
Right.
I mean, who knows? Who knows what they see? And I'm not glad that you mentioned that your husband, suffered, because he did. People think, and I want to tell the world this, people think, for some reason, some people think that people with dementia do not suffer. This is not true, folks. I want the world to know this. They do suffer, make no mistake about it. Absolutely. It's a mental torture. Plus the fact that they have another disease with it, like my father did, like arthritis, or you have COPD, you're diabetic, you have kidney disease, anything. And if they suffered with pain before dementia, they still suffer with it when they had dementia. And when you see someone mentally tortured with hallucinations, they are suffering, folks. I will debate this to anybody, toe-to-toe, face-to-face. Don't tell me my husband's not suffering, or that your husband didn't suffer. Don't tell us that, because it's not true. They did suffer.
I cry more now than I did then, because I had to be on my best, because if I cried in front of him, it didn't go over real big. He would actually make, he was just mean, and then he did have his lucid moments where he'd say, I love you so much, and I held on to them moments of my husband. Or he'd say, you don't have a fever. Like, he would be trying to take care of me. Oh, you should cover up. It feels like you have a fever. And then he'd go off in his tangent. It was the most bizarre thing I lived with him. It just changed so rapidly. It was mind-boggling, Betsy.
Yeah. It's. I tell people, Dee, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, it's not even day to day. It's instant to instant, moment to moment, they change.
You're right. Absolutely
moment to moment,
right.
folks. It's not the day anymore. I mean, Matt could be babbling incoherently, didn't talk clearly, and before he got to this stage that he's in now, and now he still does it, on the best, or I can't use the language on here, or he curses Josh and I out. Now, we know not to take it personal, but it's very hard to hear. He would be mortified if he knew he talked that way to us. Mortified.
I agree. As my husband did the same thing, and he would, because he treated me so well. He adored me. He treated me so good. He was my soulmate. So this is what's so hard. Again, and when he would say my name towards the end, I would get so excited and have tears. He knew my name. He knew my name. That's how excited I would get. And then as we were talking about seeing people that had passed, when he was towards the end, he said, "What are you doing? You just sat on my mother." I go, "Oh, I'm sorry." Well, his mother had passed. And he was starting to see his mom, his dad more towards the end. He started seeing more people that had passed on. So that I was.
I say that's common.
Yeah.
I didn't know about transitioning and actively dying stage. Even when I worked as a nurse, this was not discussed back in the 70s and 80s, and where I worked in the 90s. I didn't know about that until I joined support groups. Then I heard about them transitioning and actively dying. I mean, I saw people die in front of me as a nurse. I never thought of the process. That's actually a process that the body goes through and what to expect with that. But, I don't like when people have told me, and maybe they told you, this is a great one. Well, you know what to expect. You knew this was coming.
You don't know what to expect.
Really?
So I worked as a caregiver too in a hospital, and you see things. No, you don't know. Not when you're doing a 20 with your spouse. No, things change. The bizarre. I have things written down. I don't have them in front of me. Some of the things that happened were so bizarre, so hurtful, just so out there, and such a normal person beforehand. Knew stats, football stats, read a lot, just a kind soul, just knew a lot about a lot of things, just a loving person, and turned, no, something's got to be done. I could not watch this again. I'm going to tell you that, Betsy. It would be hard for me to watch another family member go through this.
Oh, I understand that. I definitely understand that. I told Josh already, because he said, I can't take care of you. I said, you know what? Throw me in a home. Just put me in a home or overdose me on my migraine medication. That's exactly what I told him. And, I'm concerned about Josh because Josh is at very high risk now. He's at extremely high risk for young onset. And I told Josh that I can't physically take care of you. I know I can't. Your father is light. Matt lost so much weight. I think he's about 120 pounds now, but he's dead weight. I said, I could not physically handle you. But Josh is already on Medicaid, and I tease him. I go, you know what, you're good to go. You would be able to go into a placement. And I would still, visit you. I said, but I couldn't do it, plus I'd be older. And I can't. I just can't do it. It's hard.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing. Again, I could punch out when I did it for a living, working with people, but to come and then you leave that there. Not that you didn't feel the pain of people, because I'm a very sensitive type person, but when your husband that you've known, who's treated you, and we traveled, we did things together, and then all of a sudden, all this hits like I knew in the back of my mind, Betsy, that it could happen, but you live your life. You don't wait every day.
Right.
Is it going to come? You don't. You're living your life. You're enjoying your life. You're working. You're doing. But when I noticed that he was changing, I brought it to doctor's attention. I just couldn't get the diagnosis.
Yeah, I had intuition that Matt would get it young. I remember telling him when his mom was still alive, I want you to go to a neurologist when you're 60, just to go as a baseline, because I feel like you're going to get young. I didn't know myself that you could get this young. I didn't know, and apparently the doctors didn't know either, because they diagnosed Matt with depression at first. And he wasn't depressed. It was the Alzheimer's. I had to put my foot down. Did Jim's employer put him out on disability or tell him to go see a doctor?
He was making a lot of mistakes at work, and they did put a rider with him, and then he passed out, and then he was in another hospital. But and that's when we finally kind of knew, and then I got the Cleveland Clinic involved. So yeah, he had to retire. They retired him. So
okay.
of course, because he was younger, you don't get the money you would have got if you reached your full retirement. So yeah, and then we were just getting stuff from the union because he was in the Teamsters union. So we were only getting at that time $900 a month from them, and I was working, and then I was paying Cobra, which was then it eventually was $1,200 a month for health care.
Wow.
Like I said, all I did was I didn't let him know because he would sense if something was wrong. So, but how do you hide that all the time? I had to try. But it was not always easy because he would sense everything that I felt. That was another thing. And anything I felt, he would sense. If I was upset, he would be even more agitated.
Yes, because they feed off our energy. I noticed that with Matt, too. Yes.
Absolutely. So I had to learn to reprocess myself. And so that's why I will admit it. This disease, watching him die, has totally screwed me up. It has. And I am in counseling and getting help from the church, trying to talk to people there. And because you lose so much. And I didn't think 5 years went so quickly when I look back. But again, as I told you before, I would do it again in a heartbeat for him.
And it's unconditional love. People ask, are you taking care of Matt at home? Or they asked you, why did you take care of Jim? Why don't you put him in a home? Because, you know what, folks? When we want to keep our loved ones at home because you lose everything. That's why. You lose everything when you put your loved one in a home.
And plus, I've seen what they do to them in a home. So I've been there. My mom was there just for rehab while my dad was sick, and I would go there with Jim. And it was one of the better ones. They sit, and they're not going to get cared for as well as they do at home either.
Yeah,
they just aren't. There's not the staffing ratio. People don't have the compassion. Not everybody. I'm not criticizing because there were a lot of good people. I just am that type of control freak that way. I knew he would get better care here. I was adamant about it. And he got violent. And I can say it now that they wanted to call protection services. I wouldn't tell them half the stuff that happened here because they would have taken him out of my home, our home. But I managed.
We do what we have to do, and sometimes we wonder, how did we do what we did?
I know. I'm looking back how, right.
We just, we do. I mean, we as caregivers, you have to be strong to be a caregiver. Not everyone, we can't be strong 24/7, folks. So please don't tell a caregiver to be strong because we already are, and we've been through a lot. But we just have to express what we've gone through. We want people to know the reality of this disease and what we go through. It is ugly.
It's very ugly. What it strips them of their dignity and people, and that was another thing that angered me, how he got treated sometimes. Because he had a hard time. He didn't know how to use silverware anymore. He would get hungry, and he would go in the freezer and get a frozen sausage or frozen roast and try to eat it. and get mad at me when I'm trying to deter him from that because he's hungry. He was always hungry at one point. I mean, some of the stuff that I'm thinking about that we went through, and it would just be constant trying to play games with him just so he wouldn't get agitated. I mean, it was constant.
Dee, I can't believe our time went by so fast. I would love to have you on again. I really would. Is there any advice, pearls of wisdom, you would like to tell people?
They're all your senators, your councilmen. We need to get more awareness out there. We need to get more help out there. We need to let the people that are diagnosed with it, because it's going to be younger and younger, for whatever reason, we need we just need more help. We need more help because I think the numbers are going to triple or quadruple in present years.
Yes.
Not everybody's made out to do it, because this is not the easiest job. But I don't really. I know, Betsy, I do it because I think the world of you, and I found this group a long time ago, which helped me get through some real ugly days of my life. And I'm still having a hard time, even though he's gone, because the pain's still there. The pain will never go away.
That's right.
It will never go away.
Yes, I definitely understand. I'm going to be in your shoes really soon, I believe. And I am starting, my grieving process. And it's rough. The grief is real, folks. The grief is real, and it's something you just can't explain to people.
Because I go out. Yeah, because I go out, and you seem like you were having a good time. Well, what did you want me to do? To cry the whole time? So I come home and I cry, or I cry in the car, because I try not to. It doesn't always work, but it's always there. This is not going to go away.
Right.
But I try, because people don't want to be around that. Who wants to be around that? Not a lot of people want to be around that. So I stay to myself for the most part, and I do little things. I'm doing little things, but I don't know. Like somebody told me, one of my counselors through the hospice stud, a lot of people said, usually you gauge your happiness through 1 to 10. And most of the people after suffering the loss can never reach a 10 again. Maybe an 8, maybe a 7, but have never reached a 10 again. And I can see that. I can see that. I mean, I don't want to predict the future, but I just know what I went through. I know, and you know what you're going through, and other caregivers know.
Right.
It's a nightmare, and I was on them pages, and a lot of things were similar. It's hell. Excuse me, I shouldn't have said that, but it was.
No, that's fine, and it is. It is. People need, what, Dee? One of the reasons for my show, well, actually, when Jeannie White started the Caregiver series, and then I started she did my own show, is for people to realize what we go through as a caregiver, what the person with dementia goes through, that this is real. This is not just memory loss. It isn't just forgetting your keys. This is seeing your loved one just deteriorating before your eyes. And it's not easy, and this is why we have post-traumatic stress.
Right, and trying to put I always try to put myself in the position. I can't even imagine what he went through, what your husband's going through, other dementia patients are going through. It's just mind-boggling to me. And people they want to turn away. They don't want to see it, because if it's not affecting them, it's not affecting them. But see, and there lies the problem. How are we going to ever come up with something to help if everybody wants to just forget it's there?
That's true.
We're not going to get the help. We're not going to get the help. They're not going to get the help. We can't all close our eyes.
That's right. And that's why there's more caregivers are starting to speak up. And this is why I encourage caregivers to, if they're comfortable with it, post their journey, tell your relatives, post the pictures of your loved ones and put the name to a face. People need to see the reality of this disease. And I really want to thank you, Dee, for coming on. I appreciate you coming on, and I would like to have you on again.
It was hard for me, but I thought it would. I thought it would be good for me therapeutically and helping somebody else, because that's what my new journey will be. Is if I can help somebody, that's what I want to do.
Is there a way would you want people to get in touch with you? Whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, eventually, yeah. Eventually. Right now,
okay.
I am still going through my series of my grieving and my grief journal and stuff. And this I did because I respect you. I have such great respect. You helped me through my journey with Jim. And I thought this would help maybe get some of this out, some of this anger out.
Mm-hmm.
There's still anger in me.
Oh, yes. Me too.
Eventually,
I'm an angry caregiver. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And eventually, yes, I would love to do. And eventually I would like to meet you in person. So.
Oh, that would be wonderful. You know what, Dee? We don't know. We don't know where this could, where our lives could lead to. I mean, I think about life after Matt and what I would like to do, because there's no awareness in my town whatsoever, none. And I don't know, how to do it, what I'm going to do, but I got to do something, because there isn't anything.
Right. For example, yesterday I was looking at the store. There was something, I put it in my hand and I was going to buy it for Jim for Christmas. He's not here. That's how the mind works.
Yeah, it takes very, very long time, and some people just don't, you just don't, for lack of a better word, snap out of it. People say, well, snap out of it. You can't. You don't. It's baby steps. It's just baby steps in this process, in the grieving process. And I am going to be facing it soon myself. And the end of life, folks, I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but it sucks. It just sucks.
It does suck. I second that, Betsy.
It's just horrible. And unless you live it, don't judge. Don't ever judge anybody, folks, on how they grieve, why they have their loved one at home, because you don't know. Unless you walked in Dee's shoes, my shoes, other people's shoes, you don't know. You don't know what it's like. And thanks again, Dee.
You're welcome.
I just really enjoyed talking to you. Don't hang up, because I'm going to shut the recording off when I'm done.
Okay.
This is Betsy Wurtzel, host of Chatting with Betsy on Passion World Talk Radio. Thank you for listening. Jeannie White is the producer. Please, please share the audio cast and the blogs. Jeannie White writes a beautiful blog. Please share it. Excuse me. You don't know who you're helping when you share these audio casts. As someone can always learn something from somebody. We are shining stars. Shine like when you hear Matt in the background. This is reality. Shine like a rising. Shine like a star.
I remember that.
Yes.
I remember that.
Shine bright. You're a light in someone's life. Look in the mirror. And say, I'm good enough. I'm good enough as a person, as a caregiver, or past caregiver. And if you can't have a good day, have a day, folks. Just have a day and look for something to be grateful for. I'll be talking again next week. Might even be this weekend. I don't know. Whenever I feel like doing a chat, I just jump on.
Mm-hmm.
But have, folks, sometimes it's just so hard to say, but be positive about something. Be grateful, and love up on a caregiver. Love up on a caregiver. Show them that you love them. Do something for them. I'm not talking about doing something for me, but if you know a caregiver, send a text. It's not rocket science. Send a text. I'm thinking of you, and let them know that you care about them. So see you next time, folks. Bye-bye.